Hi, Beatrice Ndora with the Musings podcast. I would like to talk on the essential practice of solitude and silence. This is a discipline that is somehow neglected and a discipline that we really need to pursue. In our fast-paced world, practicing solitude and silence is not just beneficial, it's essential for holistic growth. However, cultivating this discipline is challenging. We often face distractions, racing thoughts, and impatience as we navigate our inner landscape. Consistent practice coupled with a willingness to relinquish control and let God take the lead is crucial. I am not saying that it is an easy path, but where there is a will, there is a way. If we are willing, we will be able to push ourselves out of our comfort zone to pursue solitude and silence. Establishing a structured approach and stepping outside our comfort zones can pave the way for success. Let me say that again. Stepping outside our comfort zone. Success is on the opposite side of our comfort zone. And that is what we exactly need to do. Go the opposite direction of our comfort zone. Identifying a specific, identifying specific distractions and addressing them one at a time fosters mastery over the necessary skills, allowing us to move forward. I must admit, at the beginning is tough. When I started practicing solitude and silence, my mind was all over. My mind was crowded. I could not be able to discipline my mind and be quiet. But the more I practice it over and over, I found it is easier to do it consistently and also to enjoy the novelty that it brings into our lives. And let me say, engaging in solitude and silence enhances our resilience against spiritual, emotional, and mental toxicity. This growth not only improves overall well-being, but also ignites creativity and innovation. I love that. Most importantly, it deepens our relationship with God, illustrating our commitment to seek Him fervently and strengthening our spiritual connection through prayer and Bible study. When we develop the discipline of solitude and silence, we hunger more and more for God. And we start changing the landscape within us, where we don't want chaos, we don't want noise, we want that calmness, that peace. And when we crave for that and go after it, we are strengthening our mental health, our spiritual health, and even our emotional health. We will not be easily triggered to anger. We will not be overreactive. We will be in charge of our emotions instead of our emotions taking control of our lives. And let me say this. The benefits are many. And let me say again, they are many. Number one, we learn to be intentional in relevantly acknowledging God's presence. We walk by faith, not by sight, not by our feelings. But when we develop the practice of solitude and silence, our spiritual antennas go up. Our discernment goes up. We are able to discern when we are getting into a toxic environment. We are able to discern when anger and frustrations is starting to call our names. And we will be able to resist that. Because the more we thrive in solitude and silence, we become overreactive of that calm inner space. And we will not let anything come in to pollute that. Number two, we can reflect and identify what we have praised above God. Because if we have to thrive in solitude and silence, God has to be the center of our lives. He has to control everything in our lives. And I love Psalm 46 verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. God leads us into the paths of righteousness beside the still waters. And when we let him take the lead, we will not live chaotic lives. Number three, solitude offers clarity to evaluate our thoughts and our words. Let the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable before God. We have to evaluate our thoughts and our words. Unmonitored thoughts and unmonitored words leads to disaster. But solitude and silence brings calmness and self-control. Number four, it promotes brain health by creating new neural paths. That means solitude and silence brings novelty to our brains on daily basis. And our brain thrives in novelty. When we bring in that newness to the brain, it cleanses all the toxicity. We will not have foggy mind. Our mind will be renewed. Because we are also connecting with God in a very special way. And he's the source of our renewal. He cares very much about our brain health. He cares very much about our mental health. Number five, the discipline fortifies our emotional resilience. We will not be triggered by any emotions. We will not walk on emotional clutches. Emotions will not reign over our lives because solitude and silence brings a balance to our emotional health as well as our spiritual and mental health. And finally, I would like to conclude by saying this. Through mindful solitude and silence, we gain visibility into our inner dialogues. We are able to understand our inner dialogues. We are able to identify the healthy inner dialogue and the unhealthy inner dialogue. And let me tell you this, the unhealthy inner dialogue is not compatible with our silence and solitude. Any dialogue that is toxicity has to stay outside and leave our space clean and not overcrowded by nonsense. And also, through mindful solitude and silence, it paves an opening for pathway, for divine scrutiny, and forgiveness. Somebody who takes time to meditate, to be quiet at the feet of God, to monitor the internal world, and to stop whatever pollution is coming from the external world, cannot walk in anger, bitterness, and unforgiveness. When we develop that discipline, forgiveness is possible. And forgiveness does not mean that we forgive people and then we reconnect with their toxicity. Forgiveness means I'm forgiving you, but I am not reconnecting with the toxicity. I am not reconnecting with empty talk that will compromise my well-being. This practice truly transforms our journey towards spiritual and personal growth. I love this journey. A journey that brings us closer to God. A journey that gives us self-awareness to comprehend our internal and external world. A journey that helps us to thrive in our emotional and spiritual intelligence. I am sharing this from my experience, and I am inviting you to join me in this journey of practicing solitude and silence. And our words will be acceptable in the presence of God. Thank you very much for taking time to listen to this podcast. I encourage you to subscribe in YouTube, in Apple Podcasts, and even in Google. Google Music, you can get the podcast there. And take care, and I hope that you will enjoy the journey of solitude and silence. I will speak to you in the next podcast.